Hello everyone, how's it going? I'm Evan Doss, as you all know, and today I'm going to be talking about drugs, more specifically decriminalizing them in the United States. A few states across America have already decriminalized drugs, and one country worldwide has as well. Any guesses as to which country? Dalton?
Portugal.
Good job. Portugal. Up until the early 2000s, Portugal had a very bad drug problem, one of the worst in the continent of Europe. But when they decriminalized drugs, they found that they were able to rehabilitate these addicts and get them back on their feet. And I think that that makes for a much more productive way to rehabilitate someone. Now, decriminalizing drugs and legalizing drugs are not the same thing. When a drug is decriminalized, it prevents the government from giving a criminal charge or penalties to the drug user or seller, while legalization is the process of removing a legal prohibition against something which is not currently legal, in this case drugs. The amount of people arrested for drug use or possession across the US is far too high. This is a chart from 1980 to 2018. As you can see, it's gradually getting higher. It kind of peaked in 2006 and 2014, but this doesn't go up to 2021. It stops 2018. The Drug Policy Alliance stated that more than 1.6 million people were arrested for drugs in 2018, and more than 86% of those arrests were for possession only. They had no treatment for their illness while they were in prison, so most of these people served their time and got back to the streets and just kept doing what they were doing, using or selling drugs. The cycle never ends. Given the opportunity, they could have sought help and been admitted into a rehabilitation center and maybe gotten back on their feet. This is Joanne. Joanne is hooked on drugs and is struggling to get sober. She was sent to prison after being caught with drug paraphernalia, and Charlie, who is the baby in her arms, was given to another mother so that she could be taken care of while her mom was in prison. Though it may seem ethical that someone shouldn't have a drug-addicted mother, I feel that it would have been a better idea, not just for her, but for her child, Charlie, if she could have maybe just gone every day and gotten some sort of treatment at like a rehab center and then gotten to see her child at the end of the day. No mother should be torn apart from her child and not get to see her for 5 years every single day at any point in the day for being addicted to a drug that the government put in circulation. Now she is working to get rehabilitated and hopefully going to regain custody of her child. Unfortunately, Joanne is not the only one. This man on the right, is Corey Ladd. He's 27 years old and his daughter is in his arms. Corey was caught with a ½ ounce of marijuana and was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. What makes me so angry about this situation in particular is that marijuana laws change over time. In fact, these are all the states. The dark green is where marijuana is recreationally legal. The kind of dark green is where it's medicinal, and then light green is CBD, and then the white states are just completely illegal. So, had Corey been in a different state like California or Colorado, everything would have been all right. Now, I'm not asking that drugs should be legalized recreationally across the United States, but rather they should be decriminalized. If this was the case, Corey's ½ ounce of marijuana would have been seized and he would have gone about his life. When Curry gets out of prison, he will see his daughter for the first time in 20 years. He'll be shocked to see people walking around with masks and carrying mobile phones. Prison is for criminals, not hotheads. Thousands of simple arrests are ruining the lives of countless families across the United States. This is Stephen. Stephen was the provider for his wife and family until he was arrested, sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for drug paraphernalia. This left his wife, his kids, and just the rest of his family with no one to provide them money or affection for 5 years. Stephen had been struggling with the drug problem for many years before his arrest, so given the opportunity to seek help, he could have gone to a rehabilitation center and gotten set straight. For my last and most important point, the racism surrounding the war on drugs. Had Stephen been a white man, it might not have played out the same. I'm gonna play this video first. This is Jay-Z talking about the war on drugs. Is there any way we can get sound or no?
In 1986,
Okay,
when I was coming of age, Ronald Reagan doubled down on the war on drugs that had been started by Richard Nixon in 1971. Drugs were bad, fried your brain, and drug dealers were monsters. The sole reason neighborhoods and major cities were failing. No one wanted to talk about Reaganomics and the ending of social safety nets, the defunding of schools and the loss of jobs in cities across America. Young men like me who hustled became the sole villain, and drug addicts lacked moral fortitude. In the 1990s, incarceration rates in the US blew up. Today we imprison more people than any other country in the world: China, Russia, Iran, Cuba. All countries we consider autocratic and repressive. Yeah, more than them. Judges' hands were tied by tough on crime laws, and they were forced to hand out mandatory life sentences for simple possession and low-level drug sales. My home state of New York started this with Rockefeller laws. Then the feds made distinctions between people who sold powder cocaine and crack cocaine, even though they were the same drug. Only difference is how you take it. And even though white people used and sold crack more than black people, somehow it was black people who went to prison. The media ignored actual data to this day. Crack is still talked about as a black problem. The NYPD raided out Brooklyn neighborhoods while Manhattan bankers openly used coke with impunity. The war on drugs exploded the US prison population disproportionately, locking away black and Latinos. Our prison population grew more than 900%. When the war on drugs began in 1971, our prison population was 200,000. Today it is over 2 million. Long after the crack era ended, we continued our war on drugs. There were more than 1.5 million drug arrests in 2014. More than 80% were for possession only. Almost half were for marijuana. People are finally talking about treating addiction to harder drugs as a health crisis. But there's no compassionate language about drug dealers. Unless, of course, we're talking about places like Colorado, whose state economy got a huge boost by the above-ground marijuana industry. A few states south in Louisiana is still handing out mandatory sentences for people who sell weed. Despite a booming and celebrated 50 billion legal marijuana industry, most states still disproportionately hand out mandatory sentences to black and Latinos with drug cases. If you're entrepreneurial and live in one of the many states that are passing legalized laws, you may still face barriers participating in the above-ground economy. Venture capitalists migrate to these states to open multi-billion-dollar operations, but former felons can't open a dispensary. Lots of times those felonies were drug charges, caught by poor people who sold drugs for a living, but are now prohibited from participating in one of the fastest growing economies. Got it? In states like New York, where holding marijuana is no longer grounds for arrest, police issue possession citations in black and Latino neighborhoods at a far higher rate than other neighborhoods. Kids in Crown Heights are constantly stopped and ticketed for trees. Kids at dorms in Colombia with rates of marijuana use are equal to or worse than those in the hood are never targeted or ticketed. Rates of drug use are as high as they were when Nixon declared the so-called war in 1971. 45 years later, it's time to rethink our policies and laws. The war on drugs is an epic fail.
Alright, so though white and black people use drugs in the same amount, black people are over 2 times more likely to be arrested for possession of any drug throughout the entire United States. In certain states, that number is even higher. In states like Montana, black people, the ratio for black and white arrests is 6 to 1. That means for every white man arrested for drug possession, 6 other black men are arrested. A black person is 11 times more likely to be arrested for drug possession in Manhattan. But this is not my point. My claim is that if drugs were decriminalized nationwide, none of these people would have had to serve any time in federal prison or face any sort of criminal charges. Whether it be a mother nurturing her daughter, a man providing money for his wife, or just a man smoking a marijuana cigarette, no one should be taken away from their family for a habit that they cannot